Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhale frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just like cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It's 4:02 in the Pacific Time Zone. Time for Toker Talk Radio, where we let what's left of our hair down. Enjoy a vapor pen or two. And dig a little bit deeper into this world of marijuana. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for supporting us. I heard tell someone in the chat room said they tried to sign up for a VIP membership and it wouldn't let them complete the process. We are trying our best to get all the 420 radio website stuff working, and anytime you find a bug like that, please let me know, and we will set the IT team on it and see if we can get that fixed as quickly as possible. All right, we just completed talking about Mandy Puckett. Mandy Puckett's the No on 91 campaign chair out here in Oregon, trying to defeat marijuana legalization. I wanted to take you to a post that I've got up on radicalruss.com, my website, where we've just gotten our voters pamphlets. Here we vote completely by mail in Oregon, and we've received our document in the mail, this big booklet of all the measures and all the candidates, and it's got the text of the measure, and it's also got the for and against statements, the support and opposition statements from various citizens and leaders and so forth. And what we found is that 8 out of 12 of the anti-Measure 91 statements in this book are from Mandy Puckett, the No on 91 campaign coordinator. And if we're generous and attribute some of them to the people they say they're attributed to, still at least 5 of them are straight from Mandy Puckett. Now, there are 24 statements in support that come from a very diverse group of people. And I decided to make a graphic out of this. Now, you can find the statements of support at rad-r.us/ORMJPro, and the anti ones, you'll find them at rad-r.us/ORMJCon. But here's a basic summary of them. A quick look at who is supporting Oregon's Measure 91 to legalize adult marijuana use. So we have a grandparent, a prosecutor, a teacher, a doctor, a business person, the City Club of Portland, a firefighter/EMT, defense attorneys, a retired Supreme Court judge, a reverend from the United Methodist Church. Now here's one from the Measure 91 campaign, followed by the Oregon State Council for Retired Citizens, and then me. Although I have to point out one thing here, is I got listed as John R. Belville, executive director of what it doesn't say. I'm just executive director. So they failed to add the 420 radio part. That would have been really nice since we paid $1,200 for that. A former sheriff, Multnomah County Sheriff, a mom from Colorado, a nurse, or a bunch of nurses actually, a soldier, an environmentalist, a former Oregon drug treatment official, a farmer, another one from the Measure 91 campaign, that one's from Anthony Johnson, the ACLU, a former drug prosecutor, the mayor of Vancouver, Washington, and my congressperson, Earl Blumenauer from Oregon's 3rd District. So those are your 24 statements of support. 2 of them came from the Measure 91 campaign and 1 from me, a professional legalizer. Now, here's the dozen statements against Measure 91. Information furnished by Mandy Puckett, the No on 91 campaign. Mandy Puckett, No on 91 campaign. Josh Markey, District Attorney. Sheriff Daryl Fuller. Mandy Puckett, No on 91 campaign. 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 Stephen Armbuster, the Oregon State Elks. And Shirley Morgan, a professional prohibitionist with Oregonians against the legalization of marijuana. You can get this graphic at radicalruss.com, and it just shows you how bankrupt their campaign is. The Oregon Elks one was particularly funny. It had a reference to Jeff Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It is the Elks. What did you expect? We have Measure 91 will keep firefighters busy because of butane hash oil explosions, despite the fact that Measure 91 makes home hash making illegal. Home hash extraction will be illegal. Not ice water, but, butane, hexane, propane, that kind of stuff will be illegal at home. Drunk driving is bad. Driving while high is bad, so vote no, she says. Being a kid is hard enough without making marijuana more accessible and acceptable. Even though since 1975, kids have found between 81% and 90% of them say marijuana is fairly easy to get. 44% of them know a drug dealer at school. 91% of the time, marijuana is on the menu. One of their campaign talking points is actually that the Oregon Liquor Control Commission has a tough job. They can't stop kids from drinking underage, so why should we let them run marijuana? And of course, Josh Markey is still harping on that 12,808 arrests number. It's pretty hilarious stuff, folks.
The beginning of the end started in 1996 when California legalized weed for so-called medical purposes. 16 years later, Washington and Colorado legalized it outright and let people sell it from storefronts. And what has been the result?
The generation of millions of dollars in tax revenue for the states and creation of hundreds of new jobs in a growing multi-billion-dollar industry?
No. Well, yes, but at what cost?
Let's see. The cost of all that police time and money that's now spent going after real criminals and prisons with enough room to hold them all?
No. Well, yes, but look at what it's done to the people.
You mean that fewer of them are dying of alcohol, tobacco, and prescription-related causes since they've switched to cannabis, and many more are receiving medical benefit from a cheap, non-toxic healing herb?
No. Well, yes to all of that, but I can smell pot from my backyard, and I can't tell my kids not to do it because it's illegal.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on.
I'm Pete Tupmark. I spent 33 years in law enforcement, from deputy sheriff to sergeant, working 10 hours a day protecting Oregonians. Last year in Oregon, there were 13,000 citations and arrests for marijuana. That takes time. Time better spent solving murders, rape cases, finding missing children. The system is broken. Measure 91 regulates marijuana for adults, so police have time to fight serious, violent, and unsolved crimes. It's about time.
The new Viper Hour, the best of early 20th century reefer jazz, blues, and swing at 5 and 8 Pacific Time every Monday on 4.
I don't care for marijuana, but I do care about my family and their future. The system's not working now, so I think I'm voting yes on 91. Now, one small mistake getting caught with little marijuana can ruin a life. A record, can't get loans, jobs, or credit, that's wrong. Measure 91 will regulate marijuana and generate tax revenue dedicated to police and schools, and let police protect us from serious crimes. Yes on 91 is a better approach.
Rain me champagne when I'm thirsty. Give me a reefer when I want to get high. Give me champagne when I'm thirsty. Give me a reefer when I want to get high. Well, I feel a little lonely. Bring my woman and settle right down here by my side.
Yeah, that's the Manish Boys with Champagne and Reefer. Give me champagne when I'm thirsty, reefer when I wants to get high. Although I'm going to recommend against the champagne when you're thirsty, because in my experience, I found champagne just makes me thirstier. They're really not a really good thirst quencher, but I'll take the reefer. Welcome back, folks. It's 11 after the hour here, and want to talk a little bit about Florida because we've seen some disturbing polls coming out of the Sunshine State with regards to their constitutional amendment, question 2, to legalize medical marijuana. Now, if you've been following, you know that since it's a constitutional amendment, Florida's got a weird law that's not good enough if a majority votes for it. It's not good enough to just have the majority vote for medical marijuana because, by God, it's the Constitution. And so in Florida, to pass a constitutional amendment, you need 60% to be able to pass. Now, originally, you go back to April, May, we had lots of really good polls showing 80% support, 78% support, 82% support. But the most recent polls from Survey USA have shown a rapid decline in support for the medical marijuana amendment, going from 56% to 53% to 52% to 51% in the most recent Survey USA polls. Now, there are other polls. There's another poll showing 57% support. And these polls are showing a double-digit number of undecideds, anywhere from 11 to 16%. So it could still pass, but when the previous polls were showing high 70s and low 80s, to be down in the high or low 50s is a little scary right now. And I was reading an article on Sunshine State News, and this is by Nancy Smith, entitled How Florida's Medical Marijuana Amendment Managed to Plunge South. She makes an interesting and provocative statement. She says, quote, I think the smooth-sailing pro-constitutional amendment campaign did such a good job of promoting its early popularity, it became a victim of its own success. It was like the gold rush, but it was also a turnoff for conservative voters who felt overwhelmed, who wanted medical marijuana, but not the greed they now identified as an accompaniment. Sold-out cannabis-themed business expos and training conventions, particularly the ones in Miami and Orlando, got big media publicity, lit up Twitter, and attracted medical marijuana experts, according to the piece here in scare quotes, experts, from other parts of the country. Law practices and lobbyists carving out a specialty in medical marijuana consulting were even buying billboard ads along South Florida highways. This, she points out how there was a entrepreneurial event in Miami where people were charged $2.99 a piece for a 10-hour crash course. His company made $45,000 for a day's work. And she says that did not escape the notice of jittery, likely voters. All told, it's left a sour taste. Floridians now are asking, is this amendment more about who can profit from it than it is about who might be able to help? Mandy Stokes, age 54, said, quote, what am I supposed to think? I want sick people who can be helped by medical marijuana to have what they need no matter what. But all these people swarming into the state looking to get rich quick, I don't want Florida to be Colorado and end up with recreational marijuana, end quote. She's a Vero Beach shopkeeper and grandmother. She had planned to vote yes, but now will vote no. And there's also the vote no on two slick television ads that are all over the state. Sheldon Adelson's poured in about $4 million to defeat this. And there was a situation that happened last month where John Morgan, who's the multimillionaire attorney who's behind getting this measure on the ballot, was filmed at a measure, or his father, he was filmed at an Amendment 2 event, somewhat drunk, with a drink in his hand, standing before a bunch of young people, urging them to vote for the marijuana amendment. And he was kind of profane, said some curse words and stuff. And of course, the no people jumped on that. And again, conservative, jittery voters who might be okay with helping an old person with medical marijuana did not like the look of a millionaire defense attorney drunkenly exhorting young people to vote for marijuana. Now, this is still a close campaign. And I still think that this can pass. But it's going to be a squeaker, folks. They've got a Viewpoint poll, one of these online polls, and people are voting on right now. And right now, 52% of the people voting on this say it will go down to defeat, with 48% saying it will pass, with 22 saying squeak through, and 26 saying pass resoundingly. And this opens up a question for us all as we look forward to 2016. There's certain things we take as givens in our campaigns to legalize marijuana that data are showing us may not be so beneficial to us. There was a recent study that showed that white folks supported harsh punishment for crimes the more they knew it affected black folks. Yeah, the study that just recently came out showed that when you asked people about supporting this fictional law that would reduce criminal penalties, and you kept it race neutral, then everybody had about the same similar support for it. But when you indicated that that law would reduce penalties that are primarily suffered by black people, white support for that law dropped a lot. So we as reformers have been going forth with this new Jim Crow attitude that, oh my God, can you believe how racist these drug laws are? We may have actually been doing ourselves a disservice. We may have actually been highlighting that drug laws punish black people more, and white folks are for that. Now, again, this is broad statistical brushstrokes. We're not saying all white people are racist that hate black people and want to see them go to prison for drugs. But statistically, they are. more so than not. And similarly, we've been going forward with this marijuana legalization, or medical marijuana is going to create access, going to create jobs, going to create more opportunity, more access, more jobs, more economy. Is that biting us in the ass now? At least with medical marijuana, where people go, well, wait a minute. You're all about making a whole bunch of money on this. I thought this was about, helping sick people. And it begins to introduce some of that natural distrust and fear people have of our for-profit healthcare system into the medical marijuana debate. People already have this kind of feeling. I mean, one of the things that attracts people to medical marijuana, at least some of us, is that it gets us out of the for-profit healthcare system. It gets us into away from the pharmaceuticals and the doctors and all that whole complex that exists on keeping us just sick enough to treat. They're, like Chris Rock said, they're still pissed off they cured polio, right? They don't want to cure nothing. They want to find a way to help you live with it with a regular pill that you have to buy. So if we're painting medical marijuana as some big new green rush industry, are we not contributing to votes against it by people who hate that economic side of it? I'm guilty of this myself. I've appeared at 2 of these Florida events in Fort Lauderdale to promote the medical marijuana industry that would be taking off there. And now I wonder, was that the right thing to do? Does the commercialization of medical marijuana introduce the possibility of it losing in Florida? It's an interesting article. Let me paste in the link here into the chat room if anyone else wants to take a look at it, because it makes some very, very good and valid points, and something we need to think about as we move forward. And we think about legalizing, we think about legalizing California, it's a little bit different because California is already damn near legal. Now it's just a matter of making it statewide and consistent. I always call California quasi-legalization with a doctor's permission note is really what we're dealing with. But once Oregon and Alaska pass, once Washington, D.C. passes, and once Guam's going to be added in too, man, with medical marijuana. That sets an entirely different landscape. Plus, we'll have another couple of years of data from Washington and Colorado, and maybe we can help soothe people's fears just a little bit more.
Homicide and violence is inherent in the system. Help, help, I'm being repressed.
Yes, yes, we are being oppressed and repressed, but not for very much longer. We're still fighting, and we won't stop until it's legal all across this planet. People say, what are you going to do when it's legal, Russ? Like, what, you mean globally? And as much as anybody wants at any time they want? We still got a lot of work to do. Happy 420, everyone. Let's take a break. We're back with Bacon Dan right after this.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420.
Hi, I'm Richard Harris. I'm the former Director of Addictions and Mental Health for the state of Oregon. Drug treatment and prevention are woefully underfunded right now. Measure 91 will better fund drug treatment and prevention programs. Marijuana isn't going anywhere. We're not stopping it with the war on drugs. You have to remember that marijuana is a pretty benign drug. It doesn't have the usual dependency features of, say, heroin or alcohol abuse. Now, marijuana feeds drug cartels and fuels violence. We can crack down on that. Take the money from drug cartels and, by the law, spend it on law enforcement, treatment, and education. Criminalizing marijuana is just no way to solve the problem. That's why treatment people like me are supporting Measure 91.
Mike Schwab is a former middle school science and math teacher. Currently, he works with Children Daily as an after-school program leader.
Currently, kids have easy access to marijuana with little understanding of its impact. We can take better care of our kids through Measure 91 with strict regulations and funding for proven marijuana education and prevention programs to keep kids from using it. Under our current marijuana laws, one mistake can ruin a life. Measure 91 removes unfairly harsh punishment for marijuana offenses and gets more tax money to local police and drug prevention. Vote yes on 91.
Congressman Doc Hastings stood up for Washington's medical marijuana program and patients like Larry Harvey. Larry and his family are being prosecuted by the federal government, even though they were following Washington's 16-year-old medical marijuana law. On May 30th, Congressman Hastings voted for an amendment that would protect Washington's medical marijuana program and its patients from federal interference. Will the next representative from District 4 respect Washington voters? No, before you vote.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of The Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Roots Monday, featuring the blues, country, folk, and jazz music that birthed the modern sounds we enjoy today. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Oh, yeah, we are just 3 weeks away, starting tomorrow, from an election here in Oregon, and I know one guy who's really excited about it is our Pennsylvania transplant, Bacon Dan, by way of New York and Quebec as well. How you doing, Dan?
I am super stoked to vote. Oh, man, I'm going to be part of history this year. It's awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to that for sure. What's been happening for Bacon Dan over the weekend?
Oh, not too much. Well, apparently there was an orgy in my fish tank because there were catfish eggs all over my fish tank. So my fish are getting laid like crazy.
Well, it's good somebody's. Well, anyway.
Yeah. Went on a really great date yesterday in a true Portland fashion. We went to the Green Dragon and then to Sinferno Sunday. And tonight we'll be going on date number 2 to Karaoke from Hell.
There we go. Karaoke for Hell, where you do karaoke with a live band, folks. It's the coolest thing, and Bacon Dan is a regular.
Oh, I not only regular, I even hold my VIP card there. And one of the coolest things is the song that I chose for today, you can sing at that And the band members from the Dandy Warhols, who are from right here in Portland, love to come to this show, and they say it's one of the best shows they've ever been to.
Wow, what an amazing segue for today's tune from the Dandy Warhols. And I didn't know that they were Portland residents.
Yeah, they're from here. See them at the show, much like you'll see Peter Buck of REM at the show sometimes. So, yeah, it's pretty good. This is a great song. The song was introduced to me after I moved here because the Warhols didn't really have that much of a foothold in the Northeast where I came from. But this is a great song. This is definitely, it's got a Portland sound to it, and anybody listening in the area definitely will know what that means. So.
All right, let's get it on. This is Bohemian Like You by the Dandy Warhols. Thanks a lot, Bacon Dan. We'll see you soon.
Sounds good.
.420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you're detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215. or on the web at...
Russ Belville's on. Russ, stay with us. We're going to take a quick, short break and be right back. You listen to Planet Green Trees. Call numbers 1347.
This is Jamie Lowell from the Third Coast Compassion Center in Ypsilanti, Michigan. Every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, I listen to Planet Green Trees Radio to get all the most current and up-to-date information on the medical marijuana scene.
This is Chad from Birmingham Compassion. Every Wednesday night, tune in and join us on Planet Green Trees, www.planetgreentrees.com. Wednesday night at 8 p.m.
Hi, this is Ron, Marijuana Ranch. If it's Wednesday, it's Planet Green Trees at 8 o'clock.
I remember when I lost my mind. There was something so pleasant about that thing. Even your emotions had an echo, so much space. When you're out there without care, I was out of touch. It wasn't because I didn't know enough. I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Does that make me crazy? Probably. And I hope that you are having the time of your life. Oh, but think twice. That's my only advice. Who do you think you are? Oh, that's your soul. Do you really think that you're in control? Well, I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy. I think you're crazy, just like me, yeah. My heroes have a heart to lose their lives out on them. And all I remember is thinking, I want to be like them.
Going on the line with Planet Green Trees Radio. This was a live interview I did on Wednesday.
Stay with us. This is Planet Green Trees, episode 220. Shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot. And without further ado, we're going to get right on next guest, internationally renowned radio show host, and much, much more. That's just a limit of I know he's got fervent writer, activist,
Psychologist.
Cannabisitologist, you might say, and his own personality of his own. And I'm excited to have him on, and I'm sure he would have some critiques of the way we're doing Planet Green Trees with his long history of radio experience. But welcome, everybody, please, Russ Belville.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure, Russ. And let's get right to it. I was looking at the weed blog and some of the shenanigans, I guess it could be said, and you are one of the writers for that, of course, amongst other outlets. You've been focused lately on the Oregon responsible adult use. Explain to our listeners what that's about, what the status is, and who is bringing the shenanigans.
Well, of course, we've got Measure 91 on the ballot here in Oregon, which would legalize the responsible adult use of cannabis for all adults 21 and older. The shenanigans involved here are the drug prevention coordinators, the sheriffs, and the county district attorneys who have been using the public offices and resources at their disposal to produce so-called educational events that are clearly designed to be anti-Measure 91 campaign events.
We had something in Michigan called the Bill Schuette's Clearing the Air seminars. Our Attorney General toured the state on an anti-medical marijuana program platform as well.
Well, to talk a little bit more about the organization behind it, and it wasn't there, and Kevin Sabet, of course, was behind it and all of his mythology of prohibition and reefer madness, but wasn't there some uncovering of the funding and the motivation behind his messaging?
That's correct. We've been doing some investigative work on just how these marijuana summits and tours have been produced, planned, and operated. Promoted, I should say. These summit tours, we should note, took place in 2012 and in 2014, both years that we had marijuana legalization on the ballot. You'll remember Measure 80 from 2012 that didn't pass. But this supposedly annual summit didn't take place in 2013 when marijuana legalization was not on the ballot. So we thought that was a little suspicious. Then we started taking a look at 2012 and speaking to some of the people who had been to that event that told us that the 2012 event was blatantly political. They made no effort to hide that it was vote no on Measure 80, vote no on Measure 80 from just about every speaker that appeared. Kevin Sabet and Eric Martin, who were slated to appear at the 2014 event, also appeared at the 2012 event. Then we dug a little further and we found that the prevention coordinators in numerous counties here in the state of Oregon were lining up their money to support and to promote this event, money that they received through federal anti-drug education grants that are specifically designed and explicitly told cannot be used for lobbying of a political candidate or a initiative that might be on the ballot. So we started digging into this and started looking around how these people were connected and where they get their grant money from and how it's being spent. As we did so this August, about August 21st, we started pointing this out that, hey, this 2012 educational thing was completely a anti-legalization rally, basically, that was held in 13 states that brought in Kevin Sabet to tour the state and deliver his little scaremongering presentation. And they were about to do it again in 2014. So we started complaining, and the Measure 91 campaign, being a little bit more politically astute and having better knowledge of the laws, started bringing up the point that they can't use this grant money to perform basically political rallies and campaign events in the name of so-called education. This caused the lead sponsor, which was a place called Best Care Prevention. They're out in one of the central Oregon counties. They receive all sorts of federal grant money for drug education and such. It caused this Best Care group to pull their $15,000 worth of funding they were going to use to help put this event on. This became kind of a cause, kind of a scandal in our local news, where the local newspapers are reporting that the head of this Best Care, Rick Treelevin is his name, pulled the $15,000 because of the appearance of the conflict. This appearance that this was grant money being used for lobbying and electioneering purposes. We made a few complaints about this here from 420 Radio. By September 5th, Congressman Blumenauer's office, my representative in the United States Congress, was openly complaining and calling for the federal drug czar and the federal head of Health and Human Services to conduct an investigation in 2012 and 2014 about these vote shenanigans. So this leads us up to the point where we get Kevin Sabet here in town. When the $15,000 was pulled from the drug prevention people who were afraid that they were breaking the law with their grant money. And by the way, when you break this law, this election law, you are personally liable for every cent of taxpayer dollars that gets misused. That means if we find them liable in these situations, the $15,000 or the $20,000, however much money they spent, they have to pay it back out of their own pockets. It doesn't come from the county. It doesn't come from the taxpayers. It comes from their own pockets. So some of these people ran scared. They're a little afraid of this, and a tour that had been planned for 13 cities ended up getting scaled down to just 7 cities because 6 of these cities realized that, hey, we don't want to be anywhere near this. if it appears there's this conflict of interest and we could be liable for it. But the other 7 cities decided they wanted to continue on, and the only way they were able to continue on is by getting private money. They would now have to get this private money to replace all the public drug education grant money we had called them out on. Well, the Oregon Sheriff's Association stepped up with a $10,000 donation to help this thing continue. Other local drug prevention places raised some of their funds from private sources. And we now have evidence from our records request that the Oregon district attorneys, in particular the district attorney in Jefferson County, Steve LaRich, was spending Friday morning and afternoon, a Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on company time, using company email, on the company phone, in the company office. I should say county, right? But you know what I'm saying. Using all this federal or all these county resources to solicit fundraising to continue this summit and tour to the tune of raising $1,350 from 5 other district attorneys who were also using their county emails, county offices, county phones, and so forth during a Friday workday. So we get all this money that is finally brought together to put on this summit and this tour starring Kevin Sabet. As we continue digging, and I know if you followed Kevin Sabet any, you'll hear that, we're all volunteers and we're a nonprofit. I don't know if he says nonprofit, but we're volunteers with Project SAM. We're doing this just for the good of the community, et cetera, et cetera. We found through our records request that Kevin Sabet's fee to appear at each city in Oregon to deliver his 90-minute presentation was $3,000. Now that's $3,000 on top of expenses for flights, rental cars, hotels, and meals. So for a 7-city tour, Kevin Sabet made $21,000 in 3 days in the state of Oregon. And that would have been $39,000 in 13 cities over 7 days paid for by taxpayer money if we hadn't started poking around.
Fantastic job to bring that to light and also to affect change that way.
Well,
we were having the same problem. I mean, the election law violations that you speak of, Russ, are no different than our last guest, Jeff Hank, was talking about. And I asked him about the, economic remedies, if they existed at all. I'm glad to hear that. And I don't know, is there an outcome to that? Will someone be ready to check? But also I want to know this, Oregon, we're over here in the Midwest, and I know Oregon has been progressive in terms of medical marijuana. Would you give our listeners just a backdrop of how medical marijuana, what the nature of the law was in regards to business and dispensaries or caregivers, and how it was being interacted with patients, and how you find yourself in the current environment, just so we get a gauge on your own specific evolution in Oregon?
Sure. Well, medical marijuana in Oregon began in 1998, and unlike California and Washington, Oregon has a fairly well-regulated and strict medical marijuana system. Washington and California are the only medical marijuana states that do not have a central patient registry or card system. Of course, Oregon does. It's a card that you have to show a lot of proof of a qualifying condition, unlike California, where any condition will do. We had a limit of 3 ounces and 7 plants in our original law. In 2005, our legislature worked with our medical marijuana advocates to increase our limits to 24 plants and 24 ounces, the greatest statewide statutory limits in the country. Just recently in 2013, our legislature worked with our medical marijuana advocates to create HB 3460, which finally regulates and legalizes our dispensary system. We'd had kind of a dispensary system that cropped up, if you'll pardon the pun, in the mid 2000s, but it was always kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge reimbursement kind of stuff. We had tried to pass dispensary legalization initiatives in 2004 and 2010. Both of those failed at the polls, but despite that, our legislature worked with us to help create a regulated dispensary system. So I feel that Oregon is in prime position to be the best state for legalization because unlike Washington state, we won't have the conflicts with medical marijuana, some of the troubles that they've found there between their unregulated medical and their highly regulated recreational systems. We're going to legalize 1 ounce of marijuana outside the house, 8 ounces in the home, 4 plants that can be homegrown, which again differentiates us from Washington that doesn't allow home grow. We also will allow 16 ounces of edibles, 72 ounces of tinctures, and 1 ounce of store-bought concentrates. We will also have a system of dispensary, or pot shops, I should say, growers, retailers, and wholesalers that only require a $1,250 application and license fee per year. So the market will be open to even the small growers and sellers that want to get involved. And again, since our medical marijuana is already so well regulated, it provides almost a blueprint for how to fold in recreational stores in this state. And since our tax rates are going to be at historic lows, we are going to be taxing marijuana at a flat rate one time at the grower, $35 an ounce. That works out to $1.25 a gram at the consumer side when they start buying marijuana. And the initial estimates for a price of legal quality Oregon marijuana under our Measure 91, the Legislative Review Office tells us it's going to be $140 an ounce.
$140 an ounce.
Yes,
That's,
sir.
Far better than what we're giving here.
Let me ask you a quick question, just for my own. The original 1998 medical, was that a ballot initiative or was it a legislatively created law?
It was ballot initiative. Measure 67, I think it was.
And but it sounded as if you've had a lot of cooperation with the legislature along the way, which means to me that there was responsible attorney general of the state, probably to some degree, and because of the populace did what was needed and interacted in some way. That's one of the problems we're having in Michigan. I feel there's been a lack of leadership from the law enforcement side. They've just kind of pulled back, and it's contraband, and they're all faking, that kind of stuff. But am I right about that? It sounds like even after some other initiatives, the legislature still recognized and wanted to work with the community.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine in Michigan that any of us have ever thought that would happen? That sounds so reasonable. What's going on?
Well, we now have a very reasonable attorney general in Ellen Rosenblum, and she won office thanks to the action of medical marijuana advocates who pointed out her primary challenger, Dwight Holton, was very anti-medical marijuana. So, yeah, Oregon's got the benefit of being a pretty marijuana-friendly state, of having a number of legislators and majorities in our urban populations, for sure, that greatly support medical marijuana. But we've also had the benefit of some responsible and intelligent leadership on the medical marijuana side that has been willing to make compromises. For example, when I told you about that, increasing our limit to 24 plants and 24 ounces, that was headed by Madeline Martinez, who at the time was the head of Oregon NORML. And she actually got a lot of flack from people in the medical marijuana community because in order to get the 24 ounce, 24 plant limit, we had to trade away the affirmative defense if you were over that limit. The way the law had been written is if you had 3 plants, or if you had your 7 plants and, 3 ounces at the time, if you had more than that, you could have an affirmative defense to say, well, I had more than that, but the doctor said I really need more than that. In getting 24-24, we had to give away that affirmative defense under the theory that, hey, 24 ounces and 24 plants ought to be enough for damn near anybody. And a lot of people didn't like that, but since that has happened, it seems to have been the right decision. People seem to be happy with it. And we've seen far fewer people being in the medical side being prosecuted for having too much marijuana.
What I would say to that, I'd say the issue of whether it's actually 24 plants and 24 ounces is a question of fact for the jury. Just kidding. That's a lawyer. That is, all right, so there's a lot of, but what is the system now? I mean, was this, because, I look at Colorado, and it seems as if the transition to the adult use marketplace, the people that got the ticket to do that were the, regulated dispensaries in Colorado that had, serviced, medical patients, and they just, were the ones that had stayed in compliance and had first bid at it. Who are the ones that will, is that system so regulated in Oregon that And who's growing it for the dispensaries? I'm curious of that.
Okay, so as far as moving forward with Measure 91, there's nothing in 91 that is going to tie the issuing of licenses in any way to give more priority to the people who are already running dispensaries. I know in Colorado when they did it, you had to be a medical dispensary to get the first recreational licenses. And they've got this weird thing where the two worlds have to be completely separate. So like in Colorado now you have buildings where it's a recreational shop on the left side and it's a medical shop on the right side, and there's a wall that runs right down the middle. It's kind of silly, but Oregon's not going to have that.
But what happens is the patient doesn't pay as much taxes as the recreational user, can get more at any given time than they are allotted at the current time, and there's products that are more geared toward like conditions and things like that.
That's true.
Just because the recreational side is hyper-regulated.
That's true, but it does end up giving you the kind of some silly situations. Like, for example, you could have a mother plant of, let's say, Super Silver Haze, but that mother plant exists on the recreational side, and the buds that the seedlings and everything you produce from that mother plant must stay on the recreational side, even though that Super Silver Haze could be the exact same genetics as what you see on the medical side. If they're short a Super Silver Haze on the medical side, patients can't get at the recreational side of Super Silver Haze. So having this false distinction of, I don't understand why recreational consumers should be expected to put up with more pesticides, more molds, more of anything than a healthy or than a sick person should have. It should be one source of marijuana that's of high quality for everyone. Now, the taxation part I understand. And in Colorado, of course, they've got 15% plus 10% plus sales tax that they're taxing on the rec side versus just the sales tax on the medical side. Again, Oregon's not going to have that much of a distinction because it'll be $1.25 a gram tax on the rec side and zero tax on the medical side.
That's a successful formula.
Does that provide what you're saying? So every gram produces a certain amount of tax, what you're saying?
Yes, the tax is $35 per ounce on buds, $10 per ounce on trim, and $5 per seedling. And then those taxes can be, proportionally adjusted for any amount, right? So if you have just a gram, then it's $1.25.
$5 a clone, you're saying, right?
Yeah, $5 a clone.
So they've already preset the prices even?
$5 tax on a clone.
The tax is computed based on the overall weight, not necessarily on the price. But there was, right, you said, a statewide a projection which gave an estimate of what the market price for an ounce of marijuana would be, and you said about $145, Russ? Is that
right,
correct?
$140, $150 is what the Legislative Review Office estimated. And the thing I like about having a tax by weight is, unlike a tax by price, a tax by weight doesn't artificially want to restrict the market, for example, or change the market. For example, if you got a 10% tax on an ounce of marijuana, the state makes more money if that ounce of marijuana costs $400 than $200. They'd rather get $40 of their 10% than $20 as their 10%. But if the tax on marijuana is $35 an ounce, there's no incentive to keep that price of the marijuana high to get that high percentage of tax. You make the same $35 tax whether the ounce costs $400 or the ounce costs $200. So the incentive for the state is to allow the market to produce as much marijuana as the market can bear, rather than keep the price as high as possible and restrict the market supply in order to keep that price high.
Excellent observation. That's fantastic. Take away the motive on a statewide level for the price to increase, so that medicine can still be available at good pricing.
Now,
fantastic.
Yeah, and growers might want to compete. Some grower might have a higher price than another grower, and maybe the quality of his product justifies that price. But again, the market gets to decide that. People don't get to keep the prices high just because they're the guy with the hookup. They have to actually compete on the market.
It's not an artificial source of inflation, right?
Correct.
Russ, fantastic. Are we still on for the election night broadcast this year like we did in 2012?
Absolutely, Rick. Looking very forward to having you on our Marijuana Election Night 2014 coverage on 420radio.org. That's Tuesday, November 4th. We're going to be having people in Portland, Maine and Portland, Oregon, from the Great White North of Alaska to the Sunshine State of Florida, and right smack dab in the middle with Michigan as well.
You mentioned 420radio.org. Are there any other websites or any other things you'd like to pass along to our listeners as far as how to keep track of you and what you do and how to listen to your regular radio program?
I am Radical Russ on everything. So if you go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, online, radicalruss.com, you'll find me under Radical Russ.
Outstanding. And, of course, you graced us with your presence here in Michigan during the High Times Cannabis Cup that we had recently in Clio. Fantastic job not only of doing the broadcasting and also recording the sessions, but also of the DJ work. You kept us pumping in the nonprofit area over there with some great tunes the entire time. We certainly appreciated it. Of course, we've run across a couple times, you and I, Denver and out here too. It was nice to have you in town. Any plans to come back to the Great Lakes State anytime soon?
Man, I will come back to Michigan anytime I can make it back to Michigan. I'm a pretty shoestring budget kind of guy, so when people put on events and if they can help me raise funds for plane tickets, I'll go anywhere to talk about marijuana.
Yeah, that's a good attitude.
I like it.
Love it. Russ, listen, thanks so much for coming on. I think our segment's closing here, but we really appreciate you coming on Planet Green Trees Radio, and we look forward to being able to link up our program with your regular broadcast schedule on your 420 radio.
Yeah, we'll be adding another block of great shows from all around the country. We want to get Planet Green Trees on. We want to get Boston Pot Report out of Boston, The Hash out of San Francisco. There's a few more that we're looking to add, so I'll keep you posted.
That was recorded. We got that right. That's some kind of commitment. All right.
Hey, you're talking to lawyers, so you are legally bound to do that.
Uh-oh.
Cut that. That moment was 31-14. Left in the show. All right. Russ, great talking to you. I appreciate all your hard work, and keep at it. And we wish you well for the upcoming election and look forward to hopefully speaking with you again real soon. Have a great night.
All right. You guys have a great night, too. Great talking to the guys from the Planet Green Trees Radio there in Michigan. Rick Thompson was our correspondent for our 2012 election coverage. He's going to be with us for our 2014 election coverage as well. That's Marijuana Election Night coming up in just 3 weeks from tomorrow, people. And those of you listening to me here in Oregon, today is your last day to register to vote. You can do it online. I'll put the link right there in the chat room. It's at the Secretary of State's office. You can register online. Do it now. If you're not sure if you're registered anyway. You cannot over-register. We have got to get as much turnout as we can for Vote Yes on 91. Check out voteyeson91.com so we can pass marijuana legalization here in the state of Oregon. We are the body blow that leads to the knockout punch, people. Washington and Colorado were the jabs. Those were the jabs that got the attention of our opponents. Here in 2014, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, D.C. will be the body blows that wobble our opponent. For 2016, when we move forward with California, Arizona, Massachusetts, possibly Maine, Rhode Island, maybe Vermont, that will be the knockout punches. Especially California will be the uppercut that completely knocks out marijuana prohibition in our lifetime. Folks, once we hit 2016 and we get California legalized, you will be surprised how remarkably fast this entire Berlin Wall of prohibition is going to tumble. We will see the end of adult marijuana prohibition in this country by 2020, I predict, for by and large, just about most of the United States. I believe the federal government will end its prohibition on marijuana very soon, especially depending on how the 2016 election turns out, folks. But you got to be registered to vote to make history. If you want to be a part of this, if you want to say, I legalized marijuana, you have to vote for it. And there is no good reason not to vote for it. Some people want to spread fear. Medical marijuana people want to spread fear. Growers want to spread fear. Nothing you could be afraid of about legalization is scarier than prison. Nothing. So make sure you get registered to vote. Vote yes on 91. If you're in Alaska, vote yes on question 2. If you're in Florida, vote yes on amendment 2. If you are in Guam, vote for the medical marijuana referendum. If you're in Washington, D.C., vote yes on Initiative 71. If you're in South Portland, Lewiston, or York, Maine, vote for legalization. If you're in one of 11 cities in Michigan, vote yes. Let's reform these laws all over.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
For everyone here at 420radio.org, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.